Sit back, relax, and grab your virtual seat because in this episode and every other episode, I'll be interviewing and collaborating with another high-level marketing and copywriting expert. If you haven't yet, go ahead and get some help along the way as we dish out and pinpoint some of the most profitable, powerful marketing and copywriting wisdom. Get some help with implementing everything you'll hear in this episode and other episodes by downloading my personal sales funnel swipe file stash at copyblueprints.com. Now, grab your virtual seat and listen in. So today we have Brenna McGowan. She's a copywriter, launch strategist, and creator of Behind the Launch. And actually met Brenna by going to a live event with Copy Chief Kevin Rogers. And she gave, really good talks that relate to both copywriting and the marketing side. And I think she's, been coaching and then really doing consulting and really just holding strong for several years. And also she knew one of my first and great mentors, David Garfinkel. So it's a pleasure to, really finally sit down and get to know Brenna a little more. So thanks for being on.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Of course. So how did you, if you don't mind kind of giving us a background, because I think you went, started off as kind of a freelancer, and then kind of social media, and then a freelance copywriter, and then you transitioned to more so of, the marketing, consulting, and the product launch expertise. So how did you kind of, how was that journey for you?
Right. I joke that I started my business out of vanity. So I was actually a stay-at-home mom. I was doing maybe some odd jobs for companies. And back at the end of 2017 or so, one of my friends was opening an esthetician business. And at that time, I wanted fake eyelashes. She was doing lash extensions. And I said, hey, why don't I do your social media marketing and some email marketing and we can trade. The funny part about all of this is that I really had very little experience when it came to social media marketing. I didn't realize it at the time, but how, I guess, inexperienced I was. So my ignorance served me. I had the idea to start helping people do social media and maybe a little bit of copy, blogging, things like that. So I created a website, a logo, and announced myself on Facebook, and I got clients immediately. What ended up happening, though, was I realized very quickly, besides the fact that I needed a little bit more training, which I kind of gave myself, I put myself through a social media boot camp, if you will. But the other thing that really stood out to me is that I just didn't love doing social media marketing. I always say, Lord bless the social media marketers. It is a thankless, hard job. And I can only imagine how hard it is in 2025 compared to 2017, or 2018. So from there, I pretty quickly figured out that I liked the copy aspect of social media, writing things. And I thought, gosh, maybe I should transition over into email copywriting. I did that at the beginning of 2019, and I started doing all types of copywriting, from sales pages, emails, all the things. And while I was doing copy, I started to write launch copy for clients, and I had a couple of launches, one in particular that didn't do as well as I had hoped. And, to some degree, I thought, what went wrong with this particular launch? And that is when I really discovered that this launch was missing what I say is the most important of any part of a launch, which is a pre-launch. And that is what are we saying and doing before we put an offer in front of a client to help them make the best decision for them. And so I think it was the end of 2021, I started to transition over into pre-launch and have developed what I call anticipation marketing strategies since then.
It's funny, I feel like some of the strongest marketers in general are the ones who really spent time learning copy. I'm not gonna lie, I feel like writing copy is kind of supercharging your skills as a marketer, whether you're just being savvy with copywriting or you use it to market yourself or you teach clients that as well. But so anticipation marketing, who is that? Are those, so that concept and that structure, that method, is it geared towards certain audiences, certain niches, or is it a kind of a universal concept?
Yeah, I would say it's a universal concept. We see it more prominent if we kind of look at different niches, which I'll talk about in a moment. But everyone should be using anticipation, in my opinion, in terms of their marketing. And anticipation, the definition of it is excitement, waiting eagerly for something to happen. What we do a lot of times in the marketing and sales world is we kind of switch gears very quickly from marketing to trying to sell something, but we haven't built up momentum or buzz around the thing that we're going to sell with our marketing. So a great example of an industry that does this super well is the movie industry. If you think about a movie, you're sitting in a movie theater, you're watching some movie that you paid to see, and you have trailers coming at you. For movies, a lot of times those trailers are 120 days. They're showing them to you 120 days before you can ever go to a movie. Not only that, if you think about a trailer and the concept of a trailer, they're creating these open loops. They're giving you story. And inside of that story, they're also leaving these little cliffhangers, which you may or may not even realize to get you leaning in and going, oh my gosh, yes, like I want to go see that movie. So they are creating buyers for their next movie before the movie is even available. Another great industry that does this, I think about the fashion industry and New York Fashion Week. They're previewing what's coming up in for the spring in the fall, right? They're thinking way ahead, and that's with anticipation. And no matter how you use it, it's taking a step back and going, okay, what do we have coming up? And how can we use our marketing, our content, whatever, our copy, whatever it is, to start building buzz or interest for that thing?
That's a concept. So that's almost reverse engineering the end result, right? Of what is it leading up to, and then kind of how can we build, not necessarily hype, but how can we build excitement or engagement of something that's really cool to come? I mean, for kind of just the universal concept, the first thing I think of, and I think copywriters and marketers alike are kind of almost like a product launch or building up to a webinar where it's, maybe it's a few weeks prior, and then we really build the hype or build the excitement through email, video, all that good stuff, whether it's organic or on a list. But it sounds like the difference here is more so I don't know how to put it. It sounds like you're more so looking at the end result. How are you going to build anticipation for a certain event or a certain launch? But your approach is probably, do you take kind of, I guess the approach for building anticipation marketing, is it, to come up with the concept for a specific client or a specific product, do you take more so an emotional approach? You know what I mean? So is it more so about building emotional excitement, or is it about features, benefits, or is it, psychographics? How do you feel what do you think is kind of the strongest way of building the anticipation,
Right.
or strongest way to
Well,
get leverage?
I think it depends on the audience. And I think in general, you're using a mix of those things, right? Because inside of our audience, we have a mix of different people. So I have a little bit of your research and things that I've done on DISC. And if we think
Mhm.
about the four personality types, right? We have the dominant, the person who wants the information, they want it now, they want it quickly. We have the influencer, the person who wants to have a lot of fun, who is very much so like excitement, that likes that buzz, that hype. You have the S, the steady person, the person who likes a lot of story, right? Who wants to see things that are a little bit longer, or see copy and content that's a little bit longer, a little bit more emotional. Then they also, the people that like case studies. You have the C, who people that are also love case studies. They want to see the facts. They want to know, the logical reasons behind those. So when I am helping clients and customers create their pre-launch plan, we're thinking through our content in those different ways. I actually call it PACE, which is We are using a mix of personality, like who is, whether it's a personal brand or if it's your actual brand that goes beyond the personal one. Like, who are you? What are your values? What do you stand for? You're using a bit of authority. What are the things that you believe? What are your values? And then I go into my C, which is the credibility, which once again, we talked about it for a moment, which is how do people trust you? What are your testimonials? How do you show that you are someone they should buy from? That's not going to burn them. There's a lot of hesitation through many different markets. I work primarily with online business owners, and I see it across the board. People are more hesitant. Funds are tighter. People are not spending like they used to. And the last thing is the E in PACE is empathy, which is how do we relate to our client and customer in a way that they feel like we understand what they're going through? So in general, when we're creating our content plan, and it also depends too on what are the distribution channels for our content and our marketing? Is it podcasts? Is it emails? Is it social, right? We're taking a look and developing a plan around all of those and making sure we have a healthy mix so that we're talking to different type of buyers.
So it's taking that's probably when I take on, new clients and students, it's always I tell them like it's not sometimes the biggest goal you'll get isn't the sexy part, it's research. Research isn't the most exciting topic, but really understanding who you're talking to and who you're approaching is kind of the research process of understanding how they feel emotionally, mentally, professionally, sometimes even personally, so you can create that connection through your marketing. And it sounds like you kind of go through different facets of research to really understand your target audience holistically, which is necessary. And it sounds like you take a really strong approach to that, which is something I think more people should be cognizant of, even in the not just marketing, but salespeople, especially in the copywriting world. If people spent more time really understanding their audience, some I guess A-list copywriters, if we have a long promo to work on, sometimes we'll spend a week just dissecting the audience and previous promos and just studying what audience the target audience is saying on social media, on forums. And I just think it's a necessary evil. But what are, so kind of taking a step back, who are you currently serving for anticipation? So, your clients and customers in general, do they fall within a specific category or a specific industry?
Yeah, I work primarily with online business owners across different industries, right? I have therapists, I have doctors, I work with people who have are coaches that have one-to-one businesses or that they help customers one-to-one. This variety, I've helped nutritionists, I've helped all kinds of people with these kinds of concepts that we're talking about.
So there's probably not just the benefits or what you provide for them, but there's, always marketing is solving problems, is what we do. So I would assume that there's kind of a wide variety of problems that you're solving for your clients. Are there certain struggles you see them running into over and over? Is it, their copy? Is it the tech side? Or
Yeah, when people come to me, and this goes back to, well, I'll touch back on the research part that you mentioned, is when people come to me, they are usually selling something and either they're getting ready to sell something new and they want to make sure that their messaging, their sales argument is good. They want to think about it in terms of their offer, or they come to me because they're selling, but they know things have more potential. They feel like, gosh, we're missing something in our sales process and in that maybe you could help us with our marketing around how we should be talking about whatever that thing is we're going to sell. And this goes back to what I see with so many of, I would say, almost everyone. I'm trying to think of like a case where this isn't true, where people have not done enough research. And I think that's that copy background that's a little bit different than maybe some social media marketers, some marketers that are just hired to come in, or is that the first thing that we do is spend a ton of time on research, getting really clear on the offer, how we talk about the offer, and then who is this person, who is the right person for this, for what it is, so that we can create the content around what we're talking. So it doesn't necessarily, I think most people are like, something is off, and we can't like quite put our finger on what is off, why we're not communicating as well. What I hear a lot of times too is like, I have this great offer, but it's not selling the way that we want it to sell. And this is when we go back and do this like foundational. So not only is pre-launch and anticipation something probably new that they're adding in, some of these foundational principles are things they have missed in their marketing, because we can't get someone excited about something if we don't know what they want. And we can't create these open loops that get them leaning into what we're talking about unless we know what they want, so we know what to leave out. So what I see so often is that people are just, they're writing these content, but they're not really going back and thinking, is this the right? And sometimes it's nuanced. Is this something that someone would say? Even yesterday, I was working with a client, and it was me actually that brought in, I try to remember the phrase, and she's like, nope, that phrase isn't quite right. Like, this person would need this thing. And I'm like, you're right. This is a very nuanced way of words that I wouldn't have like recognized had we not spent the time talking to clients and customers to come up with the concepts. And what I do too is a lot of copy background, which is I kind of merge the copywriting aspect, the sales aspect. I think about a sales page. And what we're doing is taking those principles and we're kind of stringing it out on our marketing along the way, but we're doing it in a way that someone doesn't feel like they're being sold to, while we're actually shifting beliefs, getting someone to trust us, making someone kind of take stock in the pain that they're in, kind of reminding them of what's stopping them from taking action, things like that. And we're doing all of that in our marketing channels.
How about, is there kind of a pivot to that strategy depending on the niche? If, let's say, targeting an info marketer versus a physical therapist versus kind of a thought leader, are there big kind of nuances to the way you take the approach? Or
I would say no, because we're all human. And so all humans are, we are looking to listen to stories and hear
mm,
stories, a big part of what we do inside of pre-launch, inside of my program, the pre-launch plan program. We are people that want to be seen, heard, understood, valued, and want to see that the people that we're buying from do those things from us. We're people that have certain beliefs that stop us from taking action. No matter if you're a physical therapist, no matter if you're B2B, B2C, what we're talking about here crosses across all channels, in my opinion.
let's switch gears for a second. I wanted to kind of pick your brain, and if you can share the good or the bad, the good or the ugly, do you have a favorite success story of maybe a transformation you helped someone make, whether it was you helped them achieve an amazing goal, or if it was you had so much work to do that, you're maybe someone was just so intimidated that they didn't think it would work, or maybe it was just something that you really enjoyed. But do you have kind of a favorite, not necessarily a favorite, but kind of a story that stands out
Yeah,
for?
my one of my favorite stories is Susan Riak. She's a UX copywriter. So she was in the first round of the pre-launch plan program. I just completed the sixth round. So she came in, and she felt like she was doing some of the stuff that we're talking about today, but it was a little haphazard. Like, she didn't have a structure on how she should do it. And she came through the program, and what ended up happening is that she tripled her enrollment from her previous cohort of the program that she was running. She actually called in all of the people that came into her program, what she would consider perfect fit buyers. She felt less stressed throughout it because she knew what she was talking about. She actually pre-sold I'm going off my memory here. I'm almost positive it was 40% of the seats in her program before she actually officially opened the doors to her program. But the coolest thing about Susan is that she has been taking the assets that we worked together during that time and rinse and repeating, tweaking, making them better. And she just had her largest launch ever this fall. The last time she launched was fall of 2023, and she had her largest launch ever. So it wasn't like a one and done thing. She was able to take these concepts and make them as part of the fiber of her marketing program, or not her program, I'm sorry, part of her marketing for her program, and has seen consistent results by doing some of the things that we've been talking about. The thing I think that holds most people back is the foundational principles that we talk about inside the pre-launch plan program can be applied in various facets. The thing that you always have to keep in mind, and I think where some people get stuck, is you have to have an audience to sell whatever. It doesn't matter if you have the best offer with the best copy, with the best pre-launch plan, creating tons of anticipation. If you don't have enough people in your audience to be able to support the goals that you have.
Let's just build a scenario of someone who's coming to you, or they're not sure, like they haven't worked with you yet, and they kind of want to know what it would be like getting into it with you. Can you give a scenario? Let's say there's someone who is let's just say she's a coach for, fitness coach for single moms, and then she's thinking about coming to someone like you for support. And what would you tell her to expect, coming on board with you, if just needing your support?
Right. So I would first ask, like, do you want one-on-one support, or do you want to do this inside of a group with a course? What would you say in this scenario?
Yeah.
You'll be the person. Like, what
So
would
that's
you
where
want to do?
it depends on the goal, right? But I mean, I guess my thing would be, am I qualified? What do I need to bring to work with you? Do I
Right.
need?
Well, I would say, first of all, you need an audience. So I have people that come to me sometimes when they're creating an offer with a smaller audience, because of the work that we do so much, the foundational work that we do inside the pre-launch plan program. Yes, it helps you create this like strategic time before an offer goes out, like the 6 weeks before you're really talking about something new. So the thing that I would be asking is, first, is setting expectations. Like, okay, what is your audience size? Now let's say in this scenario, she has an audience of people, and she has sold things before. Maybe she has sold an offer before. So those would be the type of questions, like, have you sold this offer before? What does your audience look like? And we would be really tackling whether or not, like, what type of goals are you looking for your next sales promotion. And if she did decide to retain me at that point, we would talk about, and whether you go through my program or you work with me personally, there's essentially 4 parts. I call it the case method, which is we're really going through and I call it categorizing, clarifying. Like, we're getting really clear on that ideal client, that customer. We are spending time doing research. The A behind that in case is analyze. We're taking time I just worked with a VIP client this last month. We surveyed his audience, plus he had been talking to people as well. But we took a survey and we broke down this huge survey and kind of divvied it up and really understood the person, understood the content that needed to go out. Then we strategize. Okay, what do we need to say and do? What marketing channels are we putting this out on? And then the last thing is we execute, which is, okay, what is the copy that needs to be written to support that strategy? So I would say, the biggest qualification, what I show people is going to help you, whether you are on day one of business or you're someone who's making $1 million. And it's just and I've helped people across myriads. I would say is what is your expectation of our work together going to be? Sometimes the investment, if you're just starting, you're not going to get an ROI on that investment but you're going to get really clear messaging. You're going to be building an audience right from the beginning, which is what I see people sometimes come to me too. They come in a year, they've already tried to sell their offer and they're like, why is this thing not selling? And I can take a look at the assets they've created, their elevator pitches, all these things. And I'm like, okay, it's very clear to me why this is not selling. It's the way you're communicating about it. Or if you're someone who is coming in, further along and you're like, okay, no, I already have something that's working. I just want to optimize and add so that I don't have to spend more money on ads. So I don't have to bring as many leads in. Like, what can we do inside of our marketing channels to help support selling more of our offer without having to have as much traffic?
Cool. It sounds like you pretty much got this dialed in, which is a relief to know that, just your what you're going to deliver and then how it works. Plus you are, I think, a big part of it that most marketers, I mean, ideally all marketers, including copywriters, should do is knowing who we serve, right? Because you know your own customer, your own client. As Brenna, for example, freelancer like myself, I know who I serve. And then from there, we start then we make that connection with the client, then we help them market themselves. So a big part of it is practicing what we preach. So it's good to know that you're on that same boat, right? Because if you don't, I think it's the most comforting when you demonstrate that you practice what you preach, because obviously we all had coaches, you and I had coaches and consultants helping us build our businesses. So it's good to know that. And for anyone listening too, I would encourage, if you're looking for a coach or a freelancer, to just make sure they practice what they preach, because it's an easier path to know that what they're teaching is proven and it's not experimentation or whatever. So if people want to learn more about the program, also anticipation marketing, do you have some sort of material or a landing page they can go to or an email list?
Yeah. So what you could do is if you go to brennamcgowan.co/launch calendar, what you can actually do is put in, if you're thinking about, okay, I want to try a little bit of what you've talked about, like what would my promotional period look like? You can go in and answer a few questions and it plans out your launch in just seconds. And it gives you themes of the weeks for what you should be focusing on during those weeks during your pre-launch.
Is that where you would recommend the first place to start for someone who wants to get to know you or wants to get to know more about your program?
Yeah, I would say if you want to check out my program, you can go to brennamcgowan.co/PPP. It's called the Pre-Launch Plan Program. So 3 Ps in a row. The other place too, if you're just like, hey, this sounds interesting to me. Would this apply to my business? You can always hit me up on Instagram. I'm at Brenna McGowan Co. and DM me there. And I'm always over there on the gram answering DMs and talking to people. So that would be a great place for us to strike up a conversation.
Nice. Well, thanks for being on. Based on what I know about you and kind of the connections we've made, even overlapping networks across different communities around copywriting and marketing, I'm sure we'll probably catch up for future episodes, but that's all the contact information. So if you're looking to learn more about Brenna, you have all the info you need. Thanks, Brenna.
Thank you.
Thanks again for joining us. We enjoyed having you sit there right next to us in your virtual seat, and I hope the feeling was mutual. Don't forget to rate, share, and subscribe to the Authority Marketing Podcast. And if you'd like, check out some other episodes we got. Stay tuned for our next one.